Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. Welcome to today's postgrad webinar session. Today brought to you by University of Aberdeen, Aberdeen University, specifically their MBA. And before I do hand you over to hear about the very popular program that a lot of universities in the UK offer, but today we're going to be hearing about Aberdeen's. Reminder, today's session is live. It is the 21st of May 2026. If you see anything that is date sensitive, you're not sure about, we hear numbers all the time about September start dates, factor that in. It is May 2026. So please, if you're not sure on anything and you think things might change, please reach out and communicate to the team at Aberdeen. And likewise, if you have any questions today, any concerns, any issues, please put it in the chat facility. I'm in the background moderating the chat and I'll be able to ask John, who I'll introduce to you very shortly, any questions at the Q&A towards the end of the session. So please pop your questions in the Q&A box in the chat facility, and if you have any issues at all, please do let me know. But for now, John, over to you. I'll be back for the Q&A at the end.
Excellent. So thank you very much, Gareth. And it's another welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining this call. And I'm looking forward to sharing more about our MBA program with you. I'm joining you on this call from very, very hot and sunny Bangladesh. But from wherever you are, whether it's morning, afternoon, evening, hot or cold, welcome to this call. What you see now on screen is just a sight of some of our MBAs, because, and I've chosen this picture, our MBAs is a community. And whether it's a place of study or your future place of work, in the end, we are a community of skills. We're a community of people. And I just wanted you to see that maybe one day you could be one of these people who are on our program. Today, what I want to share with you is a few things. We have a short but simple agenda. We want to first open up and start thinking about, okay, what does it mean to be a future-ready employee? And hopefully, what I'm going to be summarizing here connects with your thinking and helps to align with some of your thinking, so that you're like, yes, okay, that's I can have the confidence that I'm going in the right direction. We can then bring that back into our MBA and start thinking, right, okay, good, we're choosing an MBA, let's be intentional about this. It's not just a program of study, there is an ecosystem so much greater. And then at the university, I might touch upon very briefly our portfolio, because there are many different programs within our MBA. We're, of course, going to jump back into the discussion afterwards. Because I'm traveling at this moment, it means I'm only on one screen, so I don't see the chat box as we're opening. But Gareth is going to help out with moderating that, and then we'll have 15 minutes or so after this presentation to address any questions that you've got. So please feel free to ask questions at any time, and then we'll bring them to the forum later on our webinar. So the future ready employee, what does this mean, and why is it important? Now, I'm sure each of you, you're here because you've got a curiosity. You're here because you're thinking about your future. So this is a very important place to start. What are the main macro factors which are happening within our place of work and within our global world? Well, generally speaking, we can recognize that these are some of the core trends. You, of course, depending upon your geographic location, have other macro factors such as energy, the cost of living and things, but for the organizational level, AI is a massive disruptive force right now. It's completely transforming how things are being done. Since COVID, you've had the rise in hybrid working, and you've also had the rise in flexible working. Now, these factors are slightly different. Hybrid is working from home. Flexible is with regards to your hours. For example, taking some time off to go to the dentist. You don't need to schedule annual leave. So employees are increasingly expecting employers to offer this sort of flexibility if the employer wants to attract good talent. So these are some of the large factors which are happening within the world of work. And what they mean when they come together is that workflows are changing. Organizations, they need to rethink how things are done. Whereas previously, there could be 100 people in an office. Maybe today, or a few years from now, there's maybe only 20 in the office, 50 at home, and then the other 30, their work's being done by AI or different sort of things. So organizations need to redesign this. For you, this is the place that you're going to be working in the next 5, 10, 20 years. What skills are necessary? Is the MBA going to help you to have a successful and fulfilling career in this world of work? So consider these questions. What skills do you think are going to be important? Take a moment to consider that. What skills do you think are going to be most important? For some people, we may be emphasizing the technical. For other people, we may be emphasizing the soft, but we'll see that there's a whole range of skills. And then consider for yourself, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you in the business leaders of today to ready their organizations for this future? With all of this change which is happening, with that need for significant investment in both training, but also in infrastructure and new technology, are business leaders, are they informed? Are they capable? Do they know what's expected? Do they understand? Are they providing you that support? How confident are you? Oh, it says question 2 again, but this is question 3. But again, this one's about yourself. How confident are you in your ability to demonstrate these skills? Now, for some people, you've maybe got great confidence. And if that's you, that's fantastic. For a lot of other people, we're coming and we're looking to learn because we're maybe sensitive that actually there's a lot of skills we don't have. We're not sure. And we're hoping that the MBA will be able to help us. Whether you are confident in your ability and the MBA will help you to project that confidence, or you're maybe lacking some confidence and hoping an MBA will be able to develop those skills to provide and give you more confidence, both can be addressed here. But what are these skills? So one of the things which I've done is in the past 5, 6 months, I've looked out across the top consulting companies globally. So McKinsey, PwC, Deloitte, Korn Ferry, Gartner, all of these different companies. Now, they are amazing consulting entities who have thousands of clients. And roughly once a year, these different companies, they reach out to their clients with surveys and they ask key people in HR, talent acquisition, leadership development, and in CEO positions, what are the core needs in your companies? And then they publish that. So for myself, I've gone through and I've been reading these different reports and then synthesizing and trying to draw back, okay, what are these core pillars? What are these core skills that employers are looking for? Because in the end, if that's what employers are looking for, if we align ourselves, make sure we've got those skills and draw an alignment, then we increase our probability of being able to fulfill employer expectations, right? That makes sense. So whether that's internal promotion or going to an interview for a new entity, what are employers looking at? And you see 4 overarching categories of skills. Human skills, right up there at the top. And for some people, we think, well, that's, really? AI, technology, all of this change, human skills? I'll come back to this in a moment. The critical thinking, that ability to, when AI is doing something, it's giving you a response to a prompt that you've put in, how do you interpret it? How do you judge it? Do you actually have perhaps some background knowledge and experience to be able to know when AI is hallucinating, is one of the expressions, and then override AI? This is critical thinking. This is very important. Otherwise, we become dependent upon something else. What's the point of going and studying, and then at the end, we go to an interview. What did you learn? Oh, I learned how to use AI. Great. We don't need to employ you. Okay. Critical thinking takes things further. We also need that ability to articulate strategically. That means we need to think beyond our job, right? We need to understand, how does our job intersect and support a wider business unit? And we need to be able to talk business. So for example, people in HR, often people in HR, they talk about turnover of employees. Now, if you say, our business, small business, in last year, maybe we had 3 people turnover. Okay, that's okay. What does that mean? I'm not entirely sure. I take the information, I've got the statistic, but employee turnover, well, it takes roughly, let's just say, 3 months to bring in a new person. It takes time to train that person. Typically, it's 6 months for the person to be equal level as the person that they were replacing. That you're going to have inefficiencies during that time period, lost knowledge gaps of the organization. It takes time to mold new relationships. You've got the training cost associated with this. The recruitment cost associated with bringing in a new person is typically between 2 to 3 months' salary. You factor that in, you're thinking, okay, the average cost of labor, let's just say £40,000. You start doing the math here, and very quickly you're like, okay, that 3-person turnover probably cost this business somewhere in the region between £50,000 to £60,000. And that's not talking about lost revenues because of lost connection. That's just cost. So if you say, oh, we had 3 turnover and it cost our business about £60,000, suddenly, ooh, what can we do to reduce that cost? People understand now this is important. So that ability to talk business is really important. And of course, managing a team of AI agents, the world is changing. It's no longer just opening up ChatGPT and giving a prompt and receiving information, or having Gen AI to generate information, but bots are beginning to control bots. That's transforming how businesses are working. So these are the 4 different skills areas. And I want to touch briefly upon that first one, because for a lot of people, that will be counterintuitive. And I'm going to draw on a particular report, which was produced by Mercer in 2025. Now, I didn't actually include this one in the research which I did, because the study was done with roughly 14,000 businesses during 2024. And the world's changed a lot in the last 2 years. But the way that they present and summarize this key point, I think is very, very good. So back in 2024, they reached out to different people in HR and they said, what are your top people needs? And then they did this large survey and they identified 20 needs. And this is what you see on screen. We're not going to go through them all right now. What we just need to recognize is the first one, people's manager skills. AI is down in number 10. And if you look at the World Economic Forum, they produced a very well-known report back in 2025, and a lot of these other big companies. What is the research all saying? Actually, AI is not at the top, not where we might think it would be. Important, yes, but not the most critically important. So why? Well, typically, if we look at this chart in the middle of the screen, our typical job could be broken down into 3 areas. You've got the transactional part of your job. This is responding to emails, responding to customer inquiries, maybe producing invoices, or inputting data into a new Excel sheet, or whatever it might be. This is the transactional part. You have the relational part of your job. This is who you're working with, your teammates, your people, your clientele. It's relational. You've also got expertise. This is just the knowledge of the way that things are done. And you just gain that through experience of working in a particular business or industry over a period of time. It's one of these things where I think it's fair to say on this call today, I probably have a greater knowledge and understanding of the University of Aberdeen's MBA than anyone else on this call. It's not because I'm better than anyone on this call. It's just I've been working in this area for a little while now, and I've developed experience. I understand who's who, where do I go for key information? I know the systems, I've worked here for a while, I've had to go through that, and I've developed that knowledge and understanding. So these three broad areas are really sort of characteristic of your average job. And what's happening is AI is coming in, and AI is not actually impacting everything equally. What AI is doing is AI is augmenting our job, or a word that I prefer to use is AI is enhancing our job. And how is it doing that? It's actually focusing on the transactional role. So I'm highlighting in some ways maybe the wrong thing here, but you see in the new chart, if we equalize it, the importance of transactional has decreased. And then what that's done is it's actually left more time for the relational component. Because AI is doing more of the work, it means the emphasis, the need for expertise, and your ability to communicate has increased. You've got data, that's great. What do you do with it? You produce a story and you convince other people to make a decision with it, right? That is still important. But AI has helped you cut down the time that's needed to go out, do the research, synthesize it, draw out key points, and develop recommendations. AI has helped you cut that efficiency, but you still got to produce the story and convince other people to make the decision, right? So this is one of the main sort of changes which is happening, and the reason why we see increased emphasis and need for human skills, even within the AI era. So AI in the MBA, is the MBA still relevant in 2026? Will it still be relevant in the future? I would say very, very much. If we look at one of the reports which was produced recently, this is Korn Ferry. And Korn Ferry, this is actually the title from their report. It's all about AI, but even more so, it's that human and AI is together to become a power couple. Gartner, they talk about things as well, and they're saying, okay, AI can help you produce efficiency. You've now got a choice. What do you do with that? Do you cut costs because you've increased efficiency? Cut costs means let people go, have less employees, or do you redirect that spare time into new creative powers so that you can grow your business? AI will help you produce those efficiencies, but you've still got to make decisions about what do you do with that value of new efficiency. So there's typically a coupling, and when this couple comes together, it's the power couple. Now, back to this report with Korn Ferry, they identify 6 key trends within the talent acquisition market. So this is the recruitment market. And I think this is relevant for all of us, because if you're looking at a full-time MBA, maybe stepping out of work for a little while, you're going back into work afterwards, right? So talent acquisition is very relevant to us all. What do they say? What are the first 2? Well, the first 2 you see on screen, what we have is your next hire might not be human. Oh, geez, that's hard. So agentic AI, this is coming in. But also they say, think first, ChatGPT second. Now, this is more like a marketing slogan, right? In their report, they then analyze it and explain why. But it comes back to that second sort of class of category of skills, which I mentioned, the critical thinking. Critical thinking, not just outsourcing thought, but using AI to enhance what you're doing so that you're then coming and making those decisions. So what does your MBA do? How does it account for these 2 statements? Well, one of the, just as you can see here on screen, one of the underlying assumptions for an MBA is that you are first, it's classified as a post-experience degree. That means you've already got a degree and you've gone out and you've got experience. We're then joining an MBA and we're working with other people who have got experience. So if there's, say, 40, 50 people in a room and your average MBA has got 5 years, some less, some 10, 15, 20, on our online MBA, I think we're closer to an average between 15 to 20 years of experience, right? 40, 50 people like that, it's no longer about listening to anyone. It's about how do you unlock that experience, that 3, 4, 500 years of experience in this room? How do you learn from each other? How do we facilitate dialogue and discussion? So this is one aspect. But then with regards to this critical thinking component, it's what's the purpose of an MBA? What do we do afterwards? We're generally looking to progress our career. So that would be hierarchical progression, or often not that's vertical, or for many people, it's horizontal. It's maybe moving out of what we were doing before. But there's generally speaking an assumption that a lot of people are going to move into some form of managerial capacity, or maybe start up their own business. But again, that requires business knowledge. So then it's no longer just about technical skills. You do another master's degree to master those technical skills. Here, this is a degree in business. We're assuming that we're going to be working with other people who have got technical skills. Our job now is to manage these technical experts. So it's management. And then what does that mean? Here it's about, okay, they've gone out, done work, they come to us, we communicate with them to draw out the key points, and then we make those critically and informed judgment calls. We make those decisions. We take the accountability. That's why there's so much weight on the shoulders of management. Or sometimes we're working with other people to unlock creative innovations, that sort of capacity. So either way, that decision-making process, coming up with new ideas, if we're assuming that these are going to be effective decisions and good ideas, then critical thinking, learning how to think, is a central facet in every single course. It's inherently essential to being able to be a good MBA student. And this very, very relevant to the future of work and AI. If AI is kind of just like an intern. If it produces something, gives you a report, you still need to judge it, you still need to give feedback, you still need to tell it when to edit. You're still the one making those judgment calls. We're also regularly doing events and bringing in speakers, engaging with industry. So just one of our events, for example, in just this less than 2 weeks' time, so also happening right now, is we're having a 3-day event on skills for the future of work. So what we're just talking about right now in roughly 30, 35 minutes, we're having that for 3 days, and we're bringing in 12 different speakers from a range of different companies, a lot of them being quite experts. We're even flying in from India, a VIP from Honeywell, who's heading up a lot of the automation for Honeywell globally. They're coming in to our campus to share their experience and give a case study. What are we doing? And how are we bringing best practice through the use case of AI? What does this mean for you as an individual? What does this mean for your companies? So we organize these sort of events throughout the year, but this one particularly is something which I'm looking forward to. And these become these become accessible to our MBAs. So this is the residency which I'm talking about. And actually, if any of you happen to be close to Aberdeen, you are welcome to join. I didn't put a QR code on our screen today, but if you search me on LinkedIn, John Storm on LinkedIn, I have made a post upon this recently, and there'll be a QR code. You feel free just to register, and then you can join us and get a taste for what that's like, and meet with some of our MBAs, that community, and get an experience of the university. But this one's on campus, but that's just one example. We have other things which are online as well. But part of that, and this is where it's kind of bringing it back to the university and MBAs, is recognizing an MBA, yes, it's a program of study, but it's also so much more. It's where is the MBA? Now, in this case, we're looking at the University of Aberdeen, but it's recognizing any university is actually a large ecosystem. What opportunities can that institution help facilitate? And I'm sure a lot of you are going to have questions, and we'll come back to some of that in the questions later on in the call. But it means there is a need to be intentional. And right at the beginning of our program in Aberdeen, I often spend a day or a couple of days with our with our new entrants, and we go through just the personal development plan. We're thinking, okay, what's our goal? What are we trying to achieve? What does that achievement look like? How will we know that we've got there? What are some of the barriers? What are some of the resources available across the university ecosystem to help you to overcome some of those barriers? And how are you going to check and review and not just let time fly by and suddenly, oh, we're graduating in 3 months and then, you know, we're going to struggle afterwards. No, we're being intentional right from the beginning. So with that, we first need to recognize, well, what are the goals? What are the motivations? So why do people join an MBA? Typically, and I'm sure right now, if we had more time and we had a bit of a discussion, if I asked people, why are you joining? We'd see in the chat, well, I want to learn new skills. I want to develop my career. I maybe want to gain a different perspective, a different way of thinking. That could be cultural, so maybe we're going to study abroad, or maybe it's because I've always worked in one sort of area. Maybe I'm an engineer, my first degree was in engineering, and that's what I've always done, and this is completely new for me, right? So gaining a different perspective. For many people, they're still doing this in work, and maybe they're studying part-time or they're balancing things. But one way or another, they're like, okay, how can I bring the value of all of this learning back into my organization? And as they're doing that, bringing the value back into the organization, that also helps because the organizations may be acknowledging them and they might get elevated status internally and put on promotional tracks in their organization. And of course, an essential component, and just like we saw with that event, which I was mentioning happening at the beginning of June, network and partnerships. This is critical. This is key. I often say it's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you, right? It's who knows you. So just because you've maybe met someone many times doesn't mean that they know and remember who you are or will do anything for you, right? So who knows you? So network, partnerships, these things are essential. So being part of a larger ecosystem, joining events not only in the university, but also regionally across the city and elsewhere, you develop your network. And this is essential. You know, our students who do the best afterwards, post-graduation, those are the ones who have networked most. So, for example, right now I've mentioned, and this is, I'm not just speaking for you, this is all of us. So I'm right now in Bangladesh. I'm working with another institution. I fly back tomorrow. Next week, I'm going and I'm speaking at the Data Fest, which is the UK or Scotland's largest data analytics event. And we've got key speakers like from OpenAI and Wikipedia and founders of these big entities. They're coming. So I've got that opportunity to present there. The week after, we're having that other event, which I mentioned. That's just what I'm doing. What are you doing? Right? Every week there's opportunities. It's 52 weeks a year. That's a lot of opportunities, right, to develop and expand your network. So it is one of these things we need to balance, right? We've got our own personal motivations for joining the program, and this is important. We need to be clear. The more clear you are in your motivation and your goal, this is great. But we also need to recognize the talent market, because that's the future. That's what we're going back into. What are the needs there? It is changing rapidly. It is competitive. So yes, the MBA provides you with an opportunity to enhance yourself, but it's not a solution on its own, right? It's still going to require you to work. And just as I mentioned a moment ago, really going through this model and then making sure that every 2-3 months we're pausing, we're reflecting, we're saying, okay, how am I doing? Have I been distracted? How can I get back on track? Right. Maybe I've been going to too many events and it's been just, you know, all over the place. I need to focus on what's most critical, right? We need to have these periods of review. So we'll do part of this as we go and join the MBA program. So at that point, hopefully we understand more generally speaking, what are some of the trends and we can recognize that the MBA kind of supports that. So hopefully you see an alignment. What about an MBA generally speaking? So this is the definition of an MBA that you see on screen. And I mentioned some of this before. So it's a experience degree. So people are coming in, got experience, and really that means that it provides a unique learning experience. It's no lectures and whatever else. We're having this format because we've got limited time period and we're online. But if we're together, it's much more interactive. It's much more what's happening in your industry. What have you observed? And learning from each other, right? It's very collaborative. And there's a whole range of different factors which are integrated into the MBA, which I won't go through at this moment, but you can understand that there is there is design behind these things. So for the MBA at the University of Aberdeen, I said we've got a portfolio of programs. So this is some of what we see on screen. So these are 3 of our on-campus programs, and you can see the title and then the courses on them in the list. So for our on-campus programs in Aberdeen campus, there's also electives. So you can see those electives at the bottom. You choose which one. That's during the spring term. So if you join us in September, you've got time to think about it, time to adjust, time to make a decision. For our campuses in Qatar, and we've also got a new one opening in India in September, that currently is a little bit more rigid in the choices made for you. But this is it, and you see that there's generally speaking similarity across these programs, although the analytics program has, of course, more emphasis on analytics. We've also just opened a new pathway program. So this is more what we would classify as a top-up. So if you've already got a master's degree, a business-related master's degree, whether that's in finance or management or accounting or something else which is from a business background, you can actually leverage your credits from that when you apply onto our program. And that means that you need to study less courses essentially. So we've got another thing. So if that's you, this is really worth checking into. I would say it's very attractive, and a lot of people are like, oh, okay, that'd be great. So if you've already got a master's degree from another business school, check out our pathway. So that's on campus. Online, it's similar. So we've got our online program. Online, we've also got choices. So these are the choices. There is a slight difference, but also not just the courses that we deliver ourselves. We've also got an exchange partnership integrated into our online program. So Curtin University, this is one of the top Australian universities. I think their MBA program is top 40 globally. We provide anyone joining our online program the option of swapping, so exchanging one of our courses for one of theirs. Well, technically it's up to two of theirs, but most people would maybe take one. So that's something that we can do to get an international exposure without even needing to leave our living room. So if people are interested in the online program, this is a bit about that. I don't want to spend too much time on this call talking about course lists and all of that sort of stuff, because most of that information is available on our website. So I'll just redirect you to abdn.ac.uk and you can search MBA to explore these different program options. But taking just an example, what you will find, this is just one course, is now in business, you've typically got a goal and then you've got objectives. At university, we don't always use the same vocabulary, but it's the same thing, really. We have learning outcomes. Okay, so this is basically objectives. So for every course, you will have a syllabus, and we encourage people at the beginning of every course, check out the syllabus, right? What are the objectives, the learning outcomes? What's expected of you? Have the goal in mind, right? And work towards the goal. So these are some of the learning outcomes that you would see in this course. And the reason why I just take this one just for example is to highlight some key words. Critically evaluate, critique, create, apply. You will see these words come through our program a lot. Now, how do we understand these words? Now, if you're in the UK and you've gone through the UK education system, you might be familiar with these words. But if you're not from the UK system or another country which is affiliated with the UK, you might have quite a different system and you might struggle with actually some of this aspect. So what do we mean when we're talking about this? And remember, this is really important because this is the second category of skills that employers are looking for. So developing critical judgment. So meaning what exactly? First, it does not mean negative. There are so many people from different countries where they translate into their home language. Critique means negative. And it's like, no, no, no. That is not what we mean by critique. Critique means we need to demonstrate an ability to think. And part of that is going out and having done your research. Then you are contextualizing your thinking process with maybe historical events, maybe it's symbolism, culture, whatever. Ultimately, there is some form of comparative aspect. And you're processing, you're trying to step away from your pre-assumptions, from your prejudgments, and you're trying to make more informed decisions, right? So this process of working through whatever you're thinking, this is essentially what we mean by critique. And this is a well-known journal article, journal front cover. And a few years ago, they thought this was so important that they even put it onto their front cover. So this is some of the aspects that we're talking about when we're meaning critical thinking. Okay, so I mentioned a couple of them just there. I've used this word cite and evidence and reference. A lot of people would think, I don't need that. That's academic. And that is wrong here. And I need to be careful with some of these assumptions. So often in academia, what might happen is we emphasize first methodology, and then we explore what were the findings, and then we work towards a recommendation. Within industry, it's exactly the same, but it's the opposite way around, right? If you go to your boss, but you've got an idea, they'll listen to the idea, right? So this is the recommendation. They'll listen to the idea. If they've got interest in the idea, they'll then say, where did that come from? Right? So then you've got your findings. Well, how did you get to those findings? Well, then you go back and you work backwards to the methodology. If you cannot explain where your data is coming from, then you're bringing risk to the business and your decision will not be approved, right? So the weighting might be different. We emphasize some of these things within academia, maybe more towards the beginning, but in industry, it's exactly the same thing, just the weighting is slightly different. Okay. Now, this, in educational talk, we see this, and we've got what's called a taxonomy framework. So there's different levels of learning, and these are the different levels of learning. So the bottom, we need to remember information, understand, this is essential, but then we start applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. At the MBA, we're focusing at the top of this pyramid, right? So evaluating, analyzing, it's not the same thing. A lot of people get confused, and because they're confused, maybe get lower marks. Analyzing is often looking at the internal attributes of something. Evaluating means you need that external comparison. So benchmarking, for example, this is an absolute must if you're working in business, right? So these things come inherently into our MBA. So we're really looking at the top. Now, if you recall, and I'm just going to notice this because of time, if you recall, I said, well, MBAs, they're generalist programs, post-experience programs. It's not focusing on the technical skills. It's assuming that actually we're going to be working with other people, so developing those communication skills. Remember, human skills, number one. And then we're going to be making those critical judgment decisions and creating solutions. Well, that pyramid which I just shared, what's at the top two? Creating and evaluating. So all of this is aligned with what are the core skills that employers are looking for. How does this relate to AI? What's happening? Will my MBA be able to be relevant and support me moving forward? Simple answer, absolutely. So we've talked about a few things. I did have a few other slides about the University of Aberdeen. I'll not go through the slides, but I'll maybe show a few different pictures just whilst they're here. So this is an event that we did recently. This is the CFO of Maersk for Europe, who flew in and he was presenting for us. We've of course got a campus up there. This is one of our facilities. We work a lot with the energy sector, so they often come in for training. We've got massive simulation theatre for training people from industry. We've got connections with the royal family. So this is Queen Regent, or we've got directions right to royalty. Um, she's our chancellor for the university. We've got connections historically. So, for example, this good chap, many people will know, this is Winston Churchill. He was the rector 100 years ago at the university. So this is one of the statues from our campus. And we've also got a tremendous history of innovation. And what better example than this machine here? This is the world's first full body MRI machine. And you think now almost every hospital around the world has got this. Same with products like insulin and other things too, right? So, or AI. AI would not happen without NLP. NLP was developed by researchers at the University of Aberdeen, right? So, our institution, we've had tremendous impact and influence, not only academically, but very much in various different industries around the world. So, this has helped us to get a position of positive ranking. And as we've indicated today, we've expanded with our MBA in Mumbai in India, but also we've got our campus in Aberdeen, a campus in AFG, as well as being online. The closing thing before I now give opportunity for you to have questions is whatever we're doing when we're thinking about further study, even when you're thinking and you're finishing this call, receive information. This is important, but merely having the open mind and receiving information, this is not sufficient, right? Just in the same as we're eating, if we put things in our mouth but we don't chew or swallow, we're not going to gain sustenance. Same too, if we're going to university, we need to process, we need to meditate. Meditate comes from the word chew. We need to chew over, reflect in our head things, and it's through that process of reflection, and that could be discussion with classmates and colleagues, that's where learning occurs. So hopefully this has been a informative session. Hopefully you're kind of feeling some of the energy that we've got. Working with you it brings a lot of joy because we learn from you. It's not just you learning from us. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions, and Gareth's going to help bring some of those to this discussion now. So I'll close this, and I think that gives us this opportunity for a bit more of a chat.
Excellent. Thank you, John. Really appreciate that. I found what you were saying about the AI stuff really fascinating, actually. I think it's great to hear that kind of perspective from it because quite often people go, don't use AI, don't use AI. But actually, what you said, think first, use the platform second, is
Yeah.
really important. And that probably goes with applying as well and that application stage. When students are looking to come, what advice can you give to a student when they're putting on their personal statement and their application form exactly what's expected from them?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people use AI because they think they're getting screened by AI, ATS systems and all this sort of stuff. We're wanting people to join our call, right? So write genuinely. I think this is first. Be who you are. Yes, you're wanting to present a positive image, but don't necessarily use AI to overly brush up and falsify. If you've got a few spelling mistakes and this sort of thing, it doesn't matter. It's just, there's a learning opportunity, right? So first, yeah, don't use AI to produce your application document. Show us who you are. Show us what value you're going to bring. I think be clear about what you think you can gain from the university. So why this university? Show us you've done your research, right? You've got choice. You don't have to come here. You can go somewhere else. So why here, right? Show us you've done your research. And then that means, okay, we know you've made a decision. We know that you've explored. We know that you're someone who's approaching us intentionally. Then what do you expect to gain? Oh, okay, this is someone who's thought it through. Because people without a plan, those are the people who later on they struggle the most and the most demanding from us, to be honest. So if you're coming in with a plan, we can help you in that direction. If you've got no plan, you're much harder to support. And then the third thing is not only what can you gain, but what can you contribute back? If you are a social person, if you're a networker, can you bring in, can you help your classmates to foster together, to come together? Because um, they often say in marriage, happy wife, happy life, right? In the same case, it's like if you're moving to study in another location, I don't know if you're getting this noise. I've got
A
prayer
little
time in the
bit, carry
background.
on.
um, but if you've moved from another country to come, it's like suddenly you're outside of your comfort zone, right? People engage with that differently. For some people, that's hard, and they feel challenged and they don't know. So if you're that extrovert type, bring people together, foster activities, arrange a game of basketball, go out for dinner, have people over to your home.
Yeah.
Put that on your CV, because these are the people we want. They create the experience, not just for themselves, but others. Um, and you can see there, I've given three things. It's not just about career. Career is important, absolutely. Keep that goal in mind. But also just be real, be yourself, and you don't have to feel like you need to over professionalize. I'm not a robot, you're not a robot. We're looking for relationships with real people.
Excellent, thank you. And what kind of student expect in terms of the classroom sizes? Obviously, MBA is a really popular
Yeah.
um, topic and course. Are they your stereotypical, 150, 200 people in a seminar room and you don't really know the names of the people, or are they a little bit more boutique and
Yeah.
intimate?
Yeah, definitely more petite and intimate. Definitely more in that sort of direction. Now, there may be some courses where you could be together with other cohorts, and it becomes a larger group. And sometimes that's done intentionally, because if you've got a core cohort, say with 30 people, and one of the factors, the motivating factors for joining an MBA is to network, then you're also limited in your network, right? So some courses do have multiple programs come together, so you can reach people beyond your immediate cohort. But generally speaking, yeah, your typical class size will range anywhere from 10 to I mean, typically probably 30, 40, but anywhere from 10, and we do have a couple which are maybe in the hundreds marks, but that's very rare. And if it is a course which has that, that's only for a few sessions, and then you've got what we classify as workshops afterwards during the week, where you're working in typically 15 to 20.
Excellent. And talk to me, there will be many students that will be studying business and doing their
Yeah,
bachelor's, doing their undergrad degree. From apologies for the background noise, we're just in and around a business lot here. But there'll be many students that just don't understand how an MBA is for them. They've done a
yeah,
business degree. What's next for them? How does the student identify that actually being an MBA, doing an MBA is for them? Is it that they want to become a leader? Is it that they want to become a CEO? They want to run their own business? What can
yeah,
they look for?
yeah. Hey, you're really hitting me with these questions.
Good
Excellent.
questions. Yeah.
Um, because it's one of these things where we have to be very careful at the educational side, right? Because on one side we want to be ambitious, but realistically, when we graduate, we're not just going and becoming CEOs, right? So we need to be pragmatic, and that's why right at the very beginning, I'm like, what's your goal? What's your motivation? Now, we have some people who they join and say, well, actually getting onto the MBA was my goal. Now what? Okay, so it's like, okay, how are you going to utilize and take advantage of this year whilst you're on? Okay, that can be a question for some people. Other people, it's like my goal is to get a particular type of job, and so
Yeah.
we break that down, work towards it. But this is why, yeah, having that personal development plan and working towards it, having those milestones, it helps cement things more. And then once people are more clear, we can have more articulated discussions. Um, and you will find it's like, particularly in the energy sector and things like data analytics, there are so many events which are going on. Once we know that's what you're interested in, then you can get plugged into the wider ecosystem, the wider community, and you can find out that there's a lot going on pretty quick. So I don't know if I'm
Yeah, no,
answering
yeah.
it
It's a
in that
very
way,
broad
but
question and it's
it
very
is.
difficult to answer that. I get it. It's just that from an MBA viewpoint, MBAs have been around forever and a day.
Yeah.
From that perspective. And there'll be many students that will hear MBA and go, well, is that for me? Is that the right one for me?
Mm,
Especially with the overriding amount of different programs and courses that a student can now study.
yeah.
Um, okay, let's just move on a little bit in terms
Or
of,
let me
yeah,
pause
go
just
on.
for a moment, if that's all right. Because one of the things is the the value of an MBA, or so the duration of an MBA. Your typical master's degree, they say, has got a lifespan of say 2 years, and then employers, they're no longer looking at your degree; they're looking at what experience have you got. Whereas an MBA is part of your identity actually. And whether your MBA was last year or your MBA was 20 years ago, people are like, oh, he's got an MBA, right? So I think this is
Yeah.
also a very important thing to remember, that it actually helps to um, create a way that other people perceive us. So it's not only just about us; it's about how other people perceive us, and that will happen for the rest of your life. So I think it is a life achievement for many people.
It is, and there's all different factors that people have got to take into account as well.
Yeah,
Let's talk about it, accommodation, and when
yeah,
they're living at the university. Is the accommodation on campus, off campus? What's it like to live in the city?
yeah. So we do have several different sites and different options. They can often book up a few months early, so it is advantageous to have a look at the options on the university site earlier if possible. So, I mean, earlier, May, June, July, this is okay. Waiting until mid-September, that could be a bit more, less choice. They're typically off campus. Most people have a preference to live off campus. As a city, our CBD, the central business district, is right downtown. So this is where a lot of the shops and different employers are. That's just a 30-minute walk, which contextually, for many people in another city, 30 minutes is nothing, but for Aberdeen, that's walking half the city, right? So that's what we classify as off campus, about a 30-minute walk.
Yeah.
But there's lots of shuttles, buses, public transport as well, if people wanting to walk that. But typically, off campus, when you get an offer letter, there will be links as well. So you can just click on a link. You don't need to do the searches, and it'll let you know what the different options are. People who are maybe more domestic, coming from elsewhere within the UK, often will choose private accommodation. But if you're coming in from overseas, the preference typically is to use a university one, because then it's simpler, it's more straightforward. You know what you're going to get.
Yeah, and we spoke off air earlier about Postgrad's partnership with the Chevening Scholarship. There'll be many
Yeah,
students looking to um, how do I put this? Do their research on Chevening before the application
yeah,
opens in August. Obviously MBA is all about leadership. I say all about
yeah.
leadership, but there's strong links with leadership, as is the
But
Chevening Scholarship. That goes hand in hand. Do you get a lot of Chevening scholars through the program? And likewise, again, how do they then, post graduation, go back to their respective countries and form those partnerships?
Yeah, no. So again, great question. I mean, so first, pretty much everyone who comes from overseas manages to secure some form of scholarship. So for us as an institution, if you look on the Aberdeen website, and as well, if you get a conditional offer, it will give you links to the scholarships that you might be entitled to. So most people will receive, I forget the specific name, it's like our global scholarship or
Yeah,
something like that.
Global
Um,
Scholarship it's called. Yeah,
yeah, and that's £8,000 right there, right? So that's immediate. So that's like a third of the price tag, right? A lot of other people, like what you say, whether it be Chevening or other scholarships, people secure those. Sometimes these scholarships, there can be conditions attached. So if people are receiving a scholarship from their principal government back home, they might, when they return to their home country, they're often required to present at different sort of events, exhibitions, kind of meet with future applicants so that they can also share their experiences and help drive interest into these scholarships. So sometimes there are these sort of conditions attached, and that's obviously beneficial for us as an institution as well when you've had these successful people who are going back and communicating, I did this and it was at
Yeah.
Aberdeen. Um, More broadly, you've got alumni connections, so every single person who graduates gets invited to join our alumni network. So we've got an e-zine, an electronic magazine, which our alumni team, they manage and they send out. So we're hearing about updates and stories which are happening from our alumni, whether 6 months ago or 20 years ago, and there's events happening all around the world, so we've got several dozen chapters which meet up on quite regular basis. So there's a whole range of different ways for maintaining contact.
Excellent. And just finally to wrap up on September 2026 intake
Mm.
is still available, I'm guessing, even though you've probably left it
Yeah,
at very last minute now if you are looking at that. If not, September 27, do you offer any interim intakes as well,
we
such as
do.
January?
That is correct. So right at this moment, absolutely. So we're still very much open for September 26th. It's more to do with people coming from overseas, the impact it has on visas. So if we delay that application, it might mean that people arrive a little bit later. It's a bit more of a rush when they first arrive. But if you're domestic, then you can apply. You've got a bit more grace period as well. But yeah, September 2026, we're fully open, and we also have the same programs which run during January. So we've got a January intake. That's for our campus here in Aberdeen.
Yeah.
In India and uh, Qatar, it's just the September intakes.
Excellent. Thank you, John. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And if anyone has any questions around this, any questions around the MBA 2026, going into 2027, please reach out to us. Please let us know. Please, John mentioned earlier, just a type of a keyboard, really. His name's on there. If you go John Storm Aberdeen, his bio's on there. He's got some great publication stuff on there as well. So please feel free to go on and have a look. But John, thanks for your time. Take care. All the best. Bye bye.